The fate of our team will not be forged solely under the spotlight of the first round, but in the crucial trenches of the following days of the draft. The stage is set for a collapse or the birth of an empire. We need to inject fresh and lethal blood into our offense. For the upcoming signings, our radar has locked onto an electrifying target, a college speedster with the raw ability to shred opposing schemes and turn our playbook upside down. I will unveil the identity of this prodigy and how he fits into our puzzle in the next few minutes. However, walking this route requires guts. The largest sports media conglomerate in the country has just released a spine-tingling projection. Our leadership is about to embrace the most dizzying bet of the event. We're talking about the talent with the highest fluctuation between absolute glory and total failure. It's an imminent risk, a Russian roulette of evaluation that we will dissect relentlessly, unraveling every virtue and every flaw of this kid. We are going to map every inch of this minefield now. But first, don't forget to leave a like. It's just a click and helps me a lot. With the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft already concluded, the Washington Commanders bolstered their defense by selecting linebacker Sonny Styles from Ohio State. As a fan who follows every move, I know this was a pick expected by many. Some anticipated this choice, while others hoped the team would prioritize acquiring another offensive option for quarterback Jaden Daniels. With rounds 2 and 3 scheduled for tonight, the question that remains for Washington is simple. Who will be the next player to don the Commanders' jersey? Last season, the Commanders made a big gamble by acquiring Laramie Tunsil, a move that cost them a second-round pick in this year's draft. As a result, Washington will have to wait quite a while until it's their turn again, at the 71st overall position in the third round. This delay increases the pressure on the front office to be strategic. Unless something unexpected happens in the second round, the Commanders will have to be patient, evaluate their options, and be ready to act when the opportunity arises. There are still areas that clearly need improvement. The question is whether Washington will continue to invest in defense or shift focus significantly to offense. If they opt for an offensive strategy, one name to keep an eye on is UConn wide receiver Skyler Bell. Considered a rising star for 2025, Bell is known for his speed, clocking in at 4.40 seconds in the 40-yard dash, and for his ability to consistently gain yards after the catch. He finished the season with 101 receptions, 178 yards, and 13 touchdowns, emerging as a dynamic and creative player who can make an immediate impact. Bell began his career in Wisconsin, where he was a consistent contributor, before transferring to UConn, closer to home, and becoming the Huskies' top passing option. He led the team in yards and touchdowns in both 2024 and 2025, and his performance earned him consensus All-American honors. Analysts see him as a potential number 2 receiver who could complement Terry McLaurin and give Daniels another reliable option for the offense. If the Commanders do not opt for a wide receiver, they could focus on the offensive line, acquiring a guard or center to better protect Jaden Daniels strategically. They might also look to bolster the cornerback position to strengthen the secondary. Regardless of whether the Commanders maintain their focus on defense or finally turn their attention to the offense, the third-round pick will say a lot about how they view the roster. With limited draft capital and important needs still to be addressed, Washington cannot afford to make a mistake in this crucial decision. The wait may be long, but selecting 71st could definitively shape the course of the season. ESPN predicts that the Commanders will select wide receiver Skyler Bell on the second day of the draft. There is a lot to like about him, but also much to question. That's what makes him the perfect prospect for either a breakout or a considerable failure. The Washington Commanders have only one pick on the second day of the NFL Draft, so Adam Peters and his team need to hit the mark. ESPN believes that the Commanders will select UConn wide receiver Skyler Bell with the 71st overall pick in their second-day simulation. The pick makes sense at first glance and clearly on paper. The Commanders need to add another threat to the receiving group, one that can relieve pressure off Terry McLaurin and potentially become a primary target in the near future. However, looking at the hypothetical scenario as a whole, Bell would be a high-risk, high-reward pick. At 71st overall, it's easy to understand why. Bell is extremely dynamic, but there are some serious flaws and an important context surrounding his game. Bell is an electrifying slot receiver who amassed 101 receptions for 1,178 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. He became the first player in UConn history to be named to the first-team All-American. According to Dane Brugler, after the historic year he had, he is quick and has great route skills consistently. His strength lies after the catch, where he uses his fluidity and precise change of direction to create space impressively. Bell would come in to compete with Luke McCaffrey and others for the Commanders' slot receiver position. Bell could be one of the best second-day picks if he performs well. However, there's a lot to discuss about the reasons why he might not perform. To start, drops have been a problem for Bell throughout his entire career. He has 24 drops and 24 receiving touchdowns, which is impressive. His worst year was in 2024 when he dropped 8 passes. The number of drops nearly doubled the amount of touchdowns he scored that season. It's true that Bell recorded the lowest number of drops of his career last year, having played only 1 game in a limited role. Even so, receivers with drop issues rarely reach a point where they're cured. It's very similar to quarterbacks in accuracy. What you see is what you consistently get. Moreover, Bell's best years only came when he faced weaker competition at UConn. He made a total of 68 receptions for 740 yards and 6 touchdowns in 3 games against Wisconsin. Once Bell arrived at UConn, he accumulated a total of 151 receptions for 2,130 yards and 18 touchdowns. How will Bell fare against the stiffest competition in the professional realm? He possesses many of the traits needed for success, but that doesn't always translate to guaranteed success, especially when a player is as limited as Bell is considerably. He is not a tall receiver by any means, and struggles to get to the ball when things get complicated with the opposing defense. He won't be a contested catch player and will need to be open on most plays. This means it's less likely he can simply win against a defender on his own, although he can do so on some occasions. He will need help most of the time consistently. Ultimately, Bell is widely considered a 4th-round pick. Selecting him early in the 3rd round would be a bit risky, but the Commanders can't avoid it since they don't have a 4th-round pick. Either way, it would be a huge stretch to select him at the 71st position, even knowing that he won't be available when their turn comes up in the 5th round. Again, there's a lot to like about Bell, but there's also a lot to be concerned about. It will be interesting to see how the second day unfolds for the Commanders definitively. The Commanders don't have a 2nd-round pick and don't possess many draft assets to help solve this problem immediately. However, they have Frankie Louvu and some other veterans as trade bait, which could help change this situation considerably. The Washington Commanders enter the 2nd day of the draft with only 1 pick. This is not ideal, considering this is a draft where NFL teams can find a number of talents. In rounds 2 and 3 consistently, the Commanders also don't have a 4th-round pick. This means they have no draft assets that would directly help them move up to the 2nd round. However, they do have some experienced veterans who could be traded, in hopes of acquiring some extra picks. Whether those picks will help them move up to the 2nd round or add another 3rd-round pick, or even a 4th, remains to be seen. At the same time, though, I'm sure Adam Peters would be willing to accept any additional picks, as long as it makes strategic sense for the Commanders. The selection of Sonny Styles makes Louvu expendable, as Styles can do everything Louvu does, just better considerably. He can cover, play the run, and pressure the quarterback from the edges, in addition to consistently lining up in different positions on defense. Louvu is in the last year of his contract, and the Commanders would clear nearly $8 million in cash for the 2026 season by trading him. They would likely receive a pick in the 5th to 7th round of the draft in return. The crucial point here is that Washington wouldn't create a gap on the roster by trading him. Armstrong was having a very solid season before an unfortunate injury, ending his participation after just 7 games devastatingly. Even so, that didn't stop the Commanders from signing Odafe Owe and Clavon Chaisson with substantial contracts in free agency. Now, Armstrong will likely be a rotational player, and while it's very valuable to have a player of his caliber as a backup, he is too expensive to fill that role in 2026. Currently, he will earn over $9 million in cash and will have an impact of over $12 million on the salary cap significantly. Like Louvu, Armstrong is in the last year of his contract, and trading him wouldn't create a gap on the roster. He could be the Commanders' most valuable asset for a trade, he even coming off an injury that ended his season. If the Commanders include some draft picks, they could likely land a good 3rd-day pick for Armstrong considerably. There has been a lot of speculation surrounding Payne's future in Washington, since he will earn over $22 million in cash this year, and simply hasn't lived up to the expectations of the 4-year, $90 million contract he signed in 2023. In summary, he has 11 sacks since signing the contract and 11.5 just in 2022. That simply won't be enough, as he is entering the last year of the contract. Payne is still a good player, but he's not worth that price. Frankly, I'm still surprised they haven't found a way to renegotiate the $5 million bonus he received early in the offseason. And if Peters wants to be thrifty, that's why Payne remains on the roster. At the same time, he would likely yield a draft pick similar to Armstrong's. So the idea is worth exploring. And, as in the other cases, no gap in the roster is created, since Jer'Jon Newton could come in and adequately fill the spot. And that's the number of injuries the Commanders suffered last year. Of course, teams can't play scared and base their decisions on injuries, but wow, last year was brutal for the team. Trading these players won't create holes in the roster, but it would certainly hurt the Commanders' depth at their respective positions. Having Styles playing with Louvu and Leo Chenal instead of just Styles and Chenal, it's a considerably valuable advantage. The same goes for Armstrong as Edge 3 and Newton as DT2. Still, the Commanders would replace them with draft picks, and while those picks don't guarantee enough depth, it's not like the Commanders are fully exposing themselves to danger. It will be interesting to see what happens, and if these players will still be on the roster. When everything ends definitively on Saturday afternoon, the Commanders' trade strategy could be crucial for the success of the draft. They need to find the right balance between maintaining depth and acquiring new talent. This is a tough decision that Peters will have to make. Veterans like Luvu, Armstrong, and Payne have valuable experience that should not be dismissed lightly. But if they can bring in picks that help bolster the roster, it may be worth it. Depth is important, but young talent is too. As a Commanders fan, I understand the importance of maintaining a deep roster. But I also recognize that we need new talent to compete. Trading these veterans could be the key to success. The second day of the draft will be crucial in determining the future of the Commanders. The decisions Peters makes today could impact the team for the coming years. I hope he makes the right choices. Next week will be exciting for all Commanders fans. The draft can change everything for the team. Let's see how Peters navigates this important opportunity. So, fan, after discovering what the Commanders' main draft needs are in rounds 2 and 3, understanding why Skyler Bell is the perfect prospect for a boom or bust, and knowing that Frankie Luvu, Dorrance Armstrong, and Darren Payne are trade chips available to acquire extra picks, which of these situations makes you more hopeful or worried? Do you believe the Commanders should really select Skyler Bell at 71? Or would it be smarter to wait for another wide receiver in later rounds? And more importantly, do you think the Commanders should trade Frankie Luvu, Dorrance Armstrong, or Darren Payne to get extra picks? Or should they keep these veterans to preserve roster depth? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think about the future of the Washington Commanders.